Welcome to Senior Living Marketing Perspectives. I'm Debbie Howard, co-founder of Senior Living Smart, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Dan Hutson, marketing kind of specialist, communicator, speaker, and he is frankly my go-to industry thought leader with all things kind of branding and communication related. So thrilled to have you with us today, Dan. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Thrilled to be with you. Thrilled to be anywhere right now, even
Yeah,
virtually.
that's right. Well, I'm very impressed with the bookshelf behind you, and I expect white papers on all of them on a weekly basis. So
Yeah, that would keep me busy for quite a while.
yeah, it would. So just to kind of put some context into this podcast, we are recording this at the end of April of 2020. So we are all kind of living in this COVID-19 adjusted reality, which has really, created a lot of challenges for the industry. Our normal way of doing sales and marketing has been very disrupted, and all the typical things that we thought were so important and the touch points throughout the customer journey and the community visits and the events and outreach to professionals and networking, home visits are very restricted, if not shut off altogether at this point. So on the other hand, it also kind of creates a new opportunity for innovation because we can't do those things. We have to kind of reimagine different ways of engaging with our prospects, lead generation, nurturing, advancing throughout this time. So I'd love to kind of start there, Dan, and kind of get your sense of what you've seen in terms of communication strategy and execution across the senior housing industry, what's working, and maybe where we're missing opportunities.
Okay, so what I see, let's talk first about senior living, and then let's talk a little bit about what people are doing, from a marketing and communications perspective outside the industry. What I see in senior living is you've got two options. One is you can hunker down, really go silent to a large extent, take a page from your crisis communications handbook and just play crisis communications and really go silent with a lot of your marketing, and that's one option. The other option is you can take this as an opportunity, and I know that sounds a little strange, but frankly, it's an opportunity for you to really explore some things that you probably wouldn't have felt comfortable exploring when things were normal. But it also, that's where potential innovation really comes from, is we're forced into a corner to try something new because the environment has changed dramatically and the old ways of doing things aren't working. What I see in senior living is, for the most part, people are kind of hunkering down. They are either not doing much in the way of marketing, or, worse, they're doing kind of tone deaf marketing that doesn't seem to recognize that, we're in a new normal. Things have changed dramatically, and people are even less interested now in you selling your product, right?
Sure.
They're not interested in that, whether it's senior living or whether it's any other product. And so I would argue that now's the time to really give yourself permission to try some really different, different things, experiment with different approaches to communication and marketing. I'm not seeing much of that in senior living. You see a couple of organizations that are doing some, I think, some good, transparent communication.
Yep.
I think, Debbie, you've mentioned in the past Brookdale. Brookdale, they've really built a pretty robust presence around COVID-19 in terms of sharing resources, being fairly, transparent about what they're doing. They've got a great gratitude feature on their site now, where people can post thank yous, and they've got a running thank you wall on their site. I think last time I checked, they were up to almost 1,000 thank yous from family members, from residents, from team members. I think that's great. What you're seeing on a lot of sites, quite honestly, is you see a banner across the top of the site saying, here are our COVID-19 updates. And, some communities or some organizations are doing nothing more than, daily or weekly update of the same old message.
Right.
There's very little, there's not a lot of transparency. There's a lot of information, but it doesn't feel like a real dialogue going on with your stakeholders, with your shareholders. I think that's a mistake. What I'm also seeing is I'm seeing a lot of those sites. They will literally vomit everything. It's like when salespeople, vomit all that information in a sales call. You're seeing the same kind of thing happening online on people's websites, where you click on the link and suddenly you're on a page that just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls of everything that they can think of that they want to say about the measures they're taking, about what their current circumstances are, how they're testing, whether or not they're accepting residents. A lot of really good information, but it's presented in such a way that it's no one wants to wade through all that.
Yeah.
If you think of it in content marketing terms, you've got potentially all this great content that's relevant and helpful to people, and yet you've given absolutely no thought as to how you're going to share it, how you're going to distribute it. You've just sort of vomited it all up on your website, right?
Yeah.
And you've made it really difficult for people to access it, when in fact there's opportunity for you to package and repurpose this content in a variety of ways to make it much more interesting and more impactful. So for the marketing and communications people out there who see this, I would encourage you, take the time. This situation has freed up your time from doing a lot of the business as usual marketing work. Take the time to really think about what are some more interesting ways of connecting with your audience, communicating with them, engaging and creating more ongoing conversations with people. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. Either people going silent, or they are advertising as usual, or they are communicating very infrequently. I was on the site of one of the biggest senior living operators, who will go nameless, but the last time they updated their message was March 31st. Well, today that's a lifetime.
Yeah.
To go dark for 3 weeks. I think that's really unfortunate. And really minimal messaging. So I think, that's all a mistake. You want to be communicating daily. You want it to be communication from different leaders within your organization, not just the CEO, not just the executive director, but you've got subject matter experts throughout your organization. Use those people. Have them step up. Have them communicate. You want to interact with authenticity and transparency. You want to come across as genuine. The other, and I hate to say the great thing about what's going on right now, because it sounds kind of insensitive, but the great thing about what's going on right now is that people are much more forgiving of you being less perfect, more vulnerable, speaking with them in a very genuine, unpolished way. They're really focused on what can you tell me that gives me some comfort? What can you tell me that gives me some knowledge, some better grasp of what's going on? And so you don't have to worry so much about the high production values and the polished scripts. You can speak more from the heart. You can speak more empathetically and just connect with people on a human level. And you will get far more traction with your audience than, any highly polished scripted presentation. Um, you want to be consistent. Um, you want to be thankful.
Right.
Don't forget to thank the people frequently. Thank the people who are making it possible for you to continue to take care of your residents, to take care of your clients, and make sure that it's genuine.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I was rambling a bit there, but
No, it's good. No, that's all good information, and it's interesting because we had Julie Podewitz on, and they have been probably one of the operators that's been the most proactive, I would say, and
yeah,
trying different channels. And one of the channels that they've tried was something fairly simple and fair and free and accessible, Facebook Live. And they just decided it was really initially just to keep families informed because they knew they would be concerned that they couldn't physically be with their loved one. And they just wanted every day for the executive director to do a quick, we're good, everyone's healthy, we haven't had any cases, and this is what we're doing today, and this is what's for lunch. It wasn't anything sophisticated or scripted. Sometimes they would bring in a resident. Sometimes they would bring in a department head, an activity director, to say, this is what we're doing today and how we're keeping people engaged. And I think the interesting thing from that conversation with her was that on an average week through all of their marketing efforts, they average about 13,000 impressions of all of their marketing content, right? In the
right,
last 5 weeks, just through Facebook Live, they've had 287,000 impressions. And prospects have found this. So even though it wasn't a sales channel, it was an informational channel or reassurance channel. If you're out there and you're putting out great content and you're accessible and you're real and you are transparent, your prospects will find you, even though it's not a salesy thing, right?
right. Well, I'm hoping that one of the enduring changes that come out of this pandemic from a marketing perspective is a greater shift toward helping, not selling, right?
Yeah.
If if you are if you're well versed in inbound marketing, you understand that people are looking, as people investigate solutions to their problems, um, they're not looking to be sold on something. They're looking for relevant information that helps inform their purchase decision. They're looking for your empathy and understanding. They're looking for, knowledge that helps them make an informed choice.
Yep.
And so, to the extent that you shift your sales and marketing efforts to be more of that helpful, trusted advisor who is not simply trying to close a sale, then I think that long term you're going to benefit. You're going to benefit today because of the current reality, but long term you're going to benefit. People are increasingly looking to align with companies, products, and services that reflect their values, to reflect their worldview. And so if you can align yourself with that customer, develop that deep understanding of what their needs are, what their concerns are, and then reflect back to them through your products and services and through your way of communicating, reflect back to them that you have that understanding and that you are delivering, not just helpful information, but helpful products that solve that problem for them, then I think you're going to find yourself in a very different place. I'm hoping that more senior living companies will make that shift away from simply talking about their features and benefits and really getting into a more deep, engaged conversation, a deeper understanding with their prospective customer, and really a genuine dialogue around how can I help solve problems for you. Right now you're seeing, particularly in other industries, you're seeing a number of companies pull back from their traditional marketing, which has been more promotional, right? And they're really focusing more on how they can be helpful. They're either going quiet, because they don't know exactly what to do in this environment, or they're switching it up. They're adapting to new circumstances. They're taking risks. They're testing things, and there are several examples. You want me to
Yeah,
run
let's get
through
into
some of
that.
the things I found?
Yep.
What I find really interesting, Visa credit card, right? Credit card company has been long associated with the Olympics. They've been a major partner of the Olympics for, I think, since 1986. Postponed a year, and as one of the major sponsors, they were involved in that decision, and they fully supported that decision. But what's really interesting is, you can imagine the enormous, complex marketing machine that was, ready to be engaged on behalf of Visa in support of the Olympics, that they had to pull the plug on all that. And what they're doing now is they're doing low-cost digital campaigns featuring Olympians who they have pledged to continue to support for this additional year, right?
Yeah.
You're taking these Olympians and they're doing lo-fi video productions, people shooting these things on their phones, where they're encouraging consumers to shelter in place. They're showing them their exercise routines, how they're keeping fit while sheltering in place. It's essentially it's a Visa-funded PSA campaign, which I think is going to create enormous goodwill for Visa, because it's not about, shilling a credit card. It's about, it recognizes the circumstances, and they're using an amazing asset that they have available to them, Olympic athletes, to encourage people to do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
Coca-Cola, if you look at Coca-Cola's social streams, take a look at Twitter. Coca-Cola, they put a pause on all their huge marketing campaigns, and they're doing things like donating their social feed to promote and highlight nonprofit partners. So if you go on the Coca-Cola Twitter feed, you'll see things like retweets of, the Red Cross, what they're tweeting, and other nonprofit partners. So again, they're positioning themselves. They're not shilling Coke. They're positioning themselves as a partner, as a collaborator with these nonprofits who are trying to help us, help those who are most, who are least advantaged to get through this thing.
Yeah.
The really weird one that I found is Steakums, right? Frozen steak food. They've turned their Twitter feed into the voice of reason, right? I want to read you something. They've got a pinned tweet at the top of their feed. A friendly reminder: in times of uncertainty and misinformation, anecdotes are not data. Good data is carefully measured and collected information based on a range of subject-dependent factors, including but not limited to controlled variables, meta-analysis, and randomization. Okay, this is a frozen steak food company,
Right.
Positioning themselves as, hey, folks, let's distinguish between all the the rabble rousing and the fear and the misinformation, and let's focus on, what's true, what's real. I mean, I don't know where they're going to go with this in the long term, but it's really interesting. General Mills has been using, they've been using Zoom to interview key executives throughout their organization. around COVID-related topics. They talked to their VP of Consumer Insights about the effects of COVID-19 on consumer behavior and food trends. Again, they're tying it back to who they are and what they do, but they're doing it in a way that I think is incredibly useful to a lot of people out there. Not selling product, trying to be relevant, contextual, and helpful. I mean, these are all great examples of where big brands with all the money in the world to do whatever they want are experimenting with some really interesting and different approaches to connect with the audience in a very, tense time. I'm not seeing that, or I'm seeing very little of that in senior living. And so I guess I would encourage senior living organizations. You can't advertise as usual, or you shouldn't be. Although I can tell you, as I go around the web, and I find operators whose sites I visited, I'm still being chased by their digital ads that behave as if nothing is different.
Yeah.
And I can just imagine, what a prospect would be thinking, that they're getting these tone deaf interruption ads on their, on their web. So you've got to really think about, what should your message be? How should you be communicating? What should you be communicating? How are you positioning yourself as a truly helpful, empathetic resource?
Yeah, no, I agree. I haven't seen a lot of it. A couple things that we're experimenting with our clients is, and this is really from more personal experience. I have an 87-year-old mom who's alone, in Connecticut, and I'm trying to figure out, how to get her groceries, and is she safe, and how to get things delivered in more of a rural market. And so, in some sense, I'm the adult daughter having these same stay-at-home anxieties, right? And so I realized how hard it was for me to figure it out. What are the senior hours, and where are the testing centers, and what restaurants have curbside or delivery? And it's all very fragmented. So the information's out there, but it's not accessible. So for our clients, what we're doing is putting out a local resources. So we're curating everything that's out there. We're going and finding all the senior hours for pharmacy, for grocery stores in every single client market. We're finding out the list of how to create a list of all restaurants, delivery, curbside, local links to Uber Eats or DoorDash or Instacart or My Umbrella, or all of those types of things that bring you to the local information, not just the national. And any senior resources, we're finding out that there are call lines, or people will call and check on your mom every day, so it's like, it takes time. It's not an easy thing, because the cities and town governments they've not curated their own local resources. So you have to really do all that investigation. But we're putting it out, through email and through social, and then we'll create, next step is probably to create a downloadable piece that can go on the website that's not gated, just good information. So it's like, how do we position our clients to be the go-to, like they know everything. They know where the testing centers are. They know the senior hours. I can just go there and they can get that information, not salesy. And so we're interested to kind of measure the engagement for that. And then I think the other thing is we created daily distractions. So every day we'll send out, they're all different. It could be the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and here's the let's go explore the Van Gogh lecture and the exhibit. And it could be Friday night, we did a link to a live opera stream. We've done chair exercise and yoga, and then even penguins and the walking around the Chicago Aquarium. But it's like, how do you connect with your prospects to just say, thinking about you today, know the days are long, want to give you something every day to look forward to. Of course, you can unsubscribe, but here are some fun things. So those are things that we're trying, just because we're all experimenting. But globally, I'm really not seeing a lot of new messaging, I think, and new marketing.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you're doing there is great because if you, instead of focusing on, how do I move my prospect to the next stage in the journey, right? And to a purchase decision, instead of doing that right now, why not do what you're talking about and put yourself in the shoes of that older adult who wants to stay at home, is not interested in making any kind of move right now. I mean, there's just too much uncertainty. It's too stressful.
Yeah.
The family members who are trying to figure out how to navigate all this, how to, uh, you know, how to stay engaged with mom or dad, how to get them the supplies they need, how to get them the services they need. If you think from that perspective and you think, I can be that go between, I can
Yeah.
be that conduit, not just for information, but maybe there are even services that I can be providing to people who traditionally are not my customer. I can just position my community as this incredible resource. So often people look at senior living communities as this place where we sequester old people, where they
Yeah.
wait to die. And we take them out of society, we put them in a community, and then we forget about them. This is a great opportunity for us to start reframing how people think about senior living communities. Senior living communities can become these incredible resource centers around all kinds of issues related to older adults. And if you can start to create the kind of resources as you're doing, create the resources, create some of the services that extend beyond your residence to start to serve people in the larger community, things do turn around and people do start considering again, should I make a move? Who are they going to go to? Are they going to go to the community that basically just didn't do anything? They just sort of, you know,
Yeah.
they ducked down, they plugged along, they shared occasional updates about what was going on in their community, but they weren't an active participant in helping the larger community get through this. Who are you going to pick? Are you going to pick that community, or are you going to pick the community that was really an active player, actively engaged in providing resources, in helping the rest of the community get through this time? I mean, that's your best marketing.
Right. No, I agree. I think that's interesting. So we're kind of coming to, in some states, this pivot towards, we went from crisis communication to this kind of current day resource communication. But we better start thinking about, how do we reframe? How do we rebuild trust? And frankly, how do we take control of our own narrative? Because let's face it, the images, that the media is showing, um, are sad, and we're kind of lumped into nursing home. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. I mean, maybe it's okay because we're not nursing homes, but then if the prospects and general community don't understand the difference, is this an opportunity to kind of make that distinction, and re-educate and separate out kind of the medical fragile population versus the lifestyle hospitality population that we serve. But what do we have to do to kind of, when we reopen, have the messaging that's going to be comforting and is going to build trust? And what do you think that looks like? What should we be thinking about now?
Well, I think, when we talk about reopening, I think that's a bit of a misnomer just because, I mean, if you're talking generally about reopening the economy, getting things started, that's one thing. If you talk about reopening senior living communities, my understanding, there was a Place for Mom survey recently done. They showed that 90% of 17,000 providers they're taking in new residents. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they're doing heightened screening, they're doing quarantine periods, they're conducting virtual tours. But they, I don't think I've talked to anyone who said, no, we're just absolutely not talking to people or taking people in. So communities are open for business. I don't think communities are doing quite enough to get people comfortable with the idea of moving in at this
Mhm.
time, because you know there's a huge content opportunity here, right? People already before this didn't understand. um, they don't understand the distinction between different kinds of uh, levels of care or different kinds of communities. The average person doesn't know the difference between independent and assisted living and memory care, skilled nursing. Um, so there's always been this huge opportunity for us to do a better job of educating consumers.
Mhm.
And I would say that if you didn't before, you need to really embrace inbound. You need to embrace content marketing. You need to have content that, excuse me, that explains different levels of care, explains the kinds of services, explains different contracts. I mean, there needs to be a lot more transparency in what we do, how we operate. I really believe that we miss opportunities on a daily basis to take people inside our communities and show them how they tick, how they operate. If we had been doing that in a consistent manner, people would already understand the value and the benefits of living in a community. They would understand, okay, so when we have a flu outbreak or norovirus or some other epidemic outbreak in a community, they would already understand all of the work that's gone into preparing a community to deal with those circumstances. I mean, I would argue that the best communities are far better prepared for something like coronavirus
Yeah.
than anyone's home,
Right.
because you have procedures and protocols in place to deal with these kinds of outbreaks. Now, obviously, this is much more serious than what we've seen in terms of, the flu or norovirus, but a lot of the basic practices communities already have in place have really well prepared communities to deal with a situation like this. And this is teaching us this is teaching us new things that we need to consider, and it's helping us improve our protocols, right?
Mhm.
So I would say moving forward, as you're looking at, really beginning to engage with the market again, you need to really build content that takes people through the steps you took, how you were able to mitigate impact, what you learned from the crisis, what new measures, new practices you've incorporated. I mean, don't shy away from it. If you had, um, you know, 5 cases of, infected staff or residents, walk
Mhm.
people through that. Walk people through, how you think it happened, the steps you took, why you're a better, stronger community on the other side. I just, communities that are not sharing anything about their experience with coronavirus, I think that that's a mistake, because people, if you don't share honest information, people are going to draw their own conclusions, and they're probably going to assume far worse than what you actually experienced.
Right.
So I think that if you did not embrace inbound marketing before, if you did not think in terms of how can I be relevant and purposeful and empathetic, and really work with people in a human way to arrive at solutions that make sense for them. If you weren't doing that before, if you were simply focused on, hey, I got to put, 10 butts in beds this month, how am I going to do that? If that was your focus, it's past time to change, but you're definitely going to have to change now. You need to be really focused on how my product solves a specific set of problems, and you need to do a much better job of telling that story in a consistent, relevant way to the marketplace. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but
Yeah,
I
no,
think
I
it,
mean, I'm a big fan of, inbound marketing, personalizing the journey, really getting out of the prospect's way. Because the days are gone that we own the prospect journey, and
yeah,
prospects own their own journey. Our job is just to provide them all of the information, and make it easy for them to navigate, and then be able to recognize where they are based on their behavior, the types of content they're downloading, how they're engaging with you through all your marketing channels. And if you don't have a way of measuring that, you're not going to be relevant, because
right,
in today's age, people want a personalized experience of your brand, and you've got to find a way to get the right content to the right prospect at the right time to be relevant. And the good thing is we have the technology to do that now. It's just,
absolutely.
as an industry, we're just slow to adopt. And
Well,
there's a big,
particularly technology, and
yes,
not just technology in an operational sense. I mean, that's frequently where the focus has been. Operational technology, but I would argue just as important or even more important is how are you adopting technology to support your sales and marketing effort. And you're right. Um, as the emphasis focuses, as the emphasis shifts more and more to digital marketing, inbound marketing, the technology to support those efforts are there, and there are many success stories out there in other industries, many ways of adopting. It is time for you to invest more seriously in building out your marketing stack, in your building out your technology stack with respect to sales and marketing. Uh, I'm hoping that that's going to be one of the outcomes, a real recognition that we can't continue to uh, operate from a marketing perspective in this very kind of primitive way that a number of communities still do.
yeah, they do. And I think part of it's just not wanting to give up control.
Yeah,
Um, and we used to keep all the secrets. We used to be the secret keepers. We're the ones who had all the information, and you had to call us or come see us to get it, and we would give it to you. And so now it's like we have to find a way to make all of those things accessible and available, and be self-serve, because all of those experiences need to happen digitally.
yeah,
So it's it's really, and I mean, our number one conversion point for marketing qualified leads, for people who are earlier in their journey and are researching in an awareness stage, is the simplest thing. Get a PDF of your brochure and make it available on your website. Download our brochure. People want it because they want to self-qualify, they want to self-disqualify, they want to understand what you offer. They definitely want pricing. People who are not transparent with that, not going to get very far today. And so it's really interesting. And yet I see still people are like, I don't know, they have a download a brochure, but then the person can't actually get the brochure. They're going to email it to them. They're going to snail mail it to them. They got to get to a thank you page. They got to be able to download it and then get put into a nurturing campaign, that says thank you for downloading the brochure. And after you've had time to look at it, we'd love to chat. You're probably going to have some questions. And then all of those nurturing touch points, have to happen in a way that's human, as so there is a way to take automation and technology and humanize it. And one of the things that we've just started doing is actually embedding messages from the salesperson and video into the nurturing, so they're having that personal experience of seeing seeing the community representative embedded into the workflows and into the re-engagement. So yeah, I mean, we could talk forever about like, and we need to definitely get back and talk about other aspects of inbound and marketing automation. But, as we look at this COVID situation as very potentially being cyclical, seasonal, nobody knows if it'll be in the fall or next winter. But what should operators be doing now? So if and when it does kind of come back around, how do we make sure we're more buttoned up and more ready? How can we use this time?
Buttoned up and ready from an operational perspective or from a sales and marketing perspective?
Sales and marketing, communication, what resources, should we be developing now, so we almost have this thing kitted, and we know, okay, the first 3 weeks are going to be crisis communication. Here's what I need to have in place. These are the channels I need to communicate on, in the resource stage,
Sure.
and then in the pivoting and renormalizing stage.
So I think that, first of all, any reputable, high quality senior living organization has put enormous thought into protocols and procedures around how to handle situations like this. There's a wealth of internal content around what should we do if, right?
Yeah.
And all of that content is strictly for internal operational use, right? Because we don't want to share that with customers, but think about it. Instead of people wondering about, well, how is this impacting a community? How are they dealing with it? If you were to build out really rich content that explains not just the steps that you take, but also all the thinking that went into developing a particular way of handling, coronavirus or flu or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few, actually, I can't think of any, there are probably some, but there are very few communities out there that publicly share, this is what we do in these situations, and it's not necessarily just sharing your emergency preparedness document that's meant for internal use, but that document has all kinds of useful information that can be repurposed for a public audience, so
Right.
that you then inform the marketplace as to what exactly you do when this kind of situation begins to arise. How do you make the decision whether or not to quarantine someone? How do you make the decision whether to restrict visits? You've now had to think through this in ways that you probably never had before, and you've probably generated a lot of really rich, thoughtful content for internal purposes that could easily be repurposed by your marketing and communications people into consumer-facing materials. It goes back to transparency again. We need to demystify what the senior living experience is all about. I was looking at a community's Facebook feed, and they mentioned that, and we're now selling, we sell at cost certain supplies because, our vendor is US Foods. They're not experiencing any shortages of anything. And so we're able to make a lot of things available that residents may be having trouble getting at the supermarket. We're making them available to our residents at cost. Well, that's really interesting and useful information. I mean, if that's something that moving forward, you think that in a crisis situation like this is something that we're going to make part of our normal operating procedure, well, why not share information like that?
Yeah.
There are probably a lot of different instances of things that you've had to operationalize that would be of great interest to your prospects and to your residents. We've got to get out of this. It's as you were saying about sales, sales and marketing, we used to hold all the information close to our vest, and you would have to come to us and say, Mother, may I have this? Well,
Right.
those days are gone. And I think those days are gone also when it comes to helping people understand the inner workings of a community. You live it every day. Your prospects, they don't know any of this stuff. And
Right.
the more you can inform them about this is how we operate, this is how food service operates, this is how healthcare in the community operates, this is how social engagement happens in communities, this is how we preparedness. I mean, you could do all kinds of posts just on these are the conversations we have, and these are the decisions that we have to make to be prepared in different kinds of emergencies. Don't assume that that stuff is not of interest to people, because it is of interest, especially if you're asking them to come live with you. Of course, that stuff is of interest to them. So I think the good news is you already have the foundation for a lot of really great, helpful content moving forward. You just need to be able to reach inside your organization, pull it out, repurpose it for a more public audience, and then start to distribute it in ways that that position you as this amazing resource, not just for older adults, but for the community at large.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, who would have thought that the back of the house would be interesting? But if you go in with, there's so many great technologies that are video that are on your phone. Um,
Yep.
and going in and saying, hey, we're going to go and see what's for lunch today, and you go back into the kitchen and there's a whole staff, being safe and socially distancing, and hey, what's for lunch, chef, and all this great stuff, and let me show you what we're making. Then it's not salesy, it's great information, but then I, as a daughter, I'm thinking, I wonder what my mom's having for lunch today. Probably a can of
Yeah.
soup. And there's this whole kind of, they're running a restaurant here. There are no shortages. We can open up the freezer and the dry goods and kind of say, look, we're good. We're prepared for this. And it didn't seem like compelling messaging before. But really, what's more top of mind right now than the supply chain and
Well,
accessibility?
think of it like as if you were a documentary filmmaker, right? There
Yep,
are no boring stories. There are only stories that are told in a boring fashion, right?
right.
So um, you look at the explosion of content that's out there with, with the dawning of streaming services, and you think about shows that you watch that you might have thought, why would anyone care about that? And yet there are millions of people who are, interested in sort of, lifting the veil and getting a better understanding of how things work. Senior living communities, I don't know anyone who has really taken that kind of approach of really taking you inside to understand not just how things operate, but also, the people involved in making those decisions, the thought that goes into making decisions. Uh, Personally, I think if you took a documentary approach and you built out a content calendar that looked at all aspects of your operation, you would have so much rich content that would be, one, really interesting to a lot of people, and two, would give people, I think, a much better grounding, understanding, and comfort level with the idea of moving into a community, because now it's a known quantity. You've established the real benefits instead of the stupid benefits we promote in brochures.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to take care of you, and we've got an Olympic-sized pool, and look at the chandelier in our lobby. Pictures of empty buildings, selling it like it's a real estate play. I mean, but instead show it as this living, breathing community of people who are engaged in interesting, purposeful lives. If you do more of that kind of content, people
Mm-hmm.
are going to respond to that emotionally. They're going to say, I want that. They'll compare it to their life at home, and they'll see what some of the deficits are, and they'll say, I want that. I,
Yeah.
these people are living a life that appeals to me. But you're doing it in a way where you're not hitting them over the head trying to convince them that, oh, you need to buy our product. People don't want that.
Right. Right. Well, interesting. Really good stuff. Just a couple of things to let people know that there are resources out there. On our website, we've actually created a whole COVID-19 section with about 30 or 40 free downloads. Just put in your first name, last name, and email address, and you can download everything. There's infographics, there's staff training in English and Spanish, there's sample media statements and letters for families. I mean, we just curated everything that we could find from a variety of sources and then created some of our own original content. It amazes me how few people are accessing this treasure trove of content, but it's definitely there and it's free and it's kind of our gift to the industry. And a little quick plug for Senior Living Smart, if you ever need any help with content, inbound, marketing automation, blogs, I mean, anything, that's what we do. And that's really our passion in supporting operators. So we hope that this podcast was helpful. Dan, we appreciate you sharing your senior living marketing perspectives with us. It was a fascinating conversation. I can't wait to have you back when we're talking about maybe some more fun content, some more fun conversations. So
Absolutely. Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate the invite.
thanks so much. Hopefully we'll get together at a future event as soon as they're happening. It
That
was
would be
great.
nice.
It would. Great to see you, Dan.
Good to see you too. Take care.